All right, we're talking about the New York Jets today, and I've got Ian of JetsCentral with me, which is a really popular platform for diehard Jets fans. You can find him on YouTube. You can find him all over social media. And the big topic, I think, for Jets fans, Ian, heading into this final preseason game with the Giants is the fact that we're going to see some starters play. It feels like the regular season has just been a little bit rushed. I don't know if you feel this way covering the Jets as closely as you do, but whether it's injuries or a lot of different teams just really missing that final preseason contest to just continue to familiarize themselves with one another, to get the rookies a little bit more comfortable. It just seems to me that the regular season is here, kind of like before we know it. I mean, do you get the sense that the Jets feel that way as well? And is that why it's necessary to get these starters out there in this last game of the preseason this weekend?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we do take a look at the injuries. Mekhi Becton, star left tackle, out for the season. Zach Wilson, his status is currently up in the air for week one, but right now it is looking like it's going to be Joe Flacco. And Flacco hasn't even taken a single snap in preseason. Of course, he's had some practices here and there as QB1 under his belt. But the in-game reps, they just hasn't really been there. Okay, so I think that this upcoming game against the Giants, it should be really, really exciting, really important for the first stringers.
You know, they're in a delicate spot because you're already using Joe Flacco to start the season. You've got a couple other significant injuries, and we have seen, if not significant injuries, pretty scary scenarios unfold in the preseason with Kayvon Thibodeau and the Giants. Most recently last weekend, I think a lot of people around here in New York were holding their breath when they saw the defensive rookie go down with what appears to be a pretty minor injury. But all that to say, careful what you wish for in the preseason when the regular season is right around the corner. I mean, how much do you think the starters should play against the Giants in this final preseason tune-up?
Yeah, I think for me personally, if I was in Robert Saleh's shoes, I would probably let the veterans go maybe a couple series, like 2 at the absolute max. For the younger guys, you know, the Jermaine Johnsons of the world, the Sauce Gardners, Elijah Moores, Garrett Wilson. I mean, the entire rookie class. I would honestly let them go a little further, maybe the entire first half. But at the same time, like you just mentioned it, like I don't to play the starters in preseason. It's such a roll of the dice. You never want to, be on the wrong end of, some crazy injury or something happening. I mean, the Zach Wilson scare freaked everybody out, especially because the initial speculation was a torn ACL, which would then in turn be out for the year. So I think if it was up to me, I would just play it safe.
Joe Flacco is so interesting, right? Because there's this juxtaposition of this guy who's been around forever. He's 37 years old. And then the rest of Robert Saleh's crew is really young. I mean, you've got these rookies that they acquired in the draft. They did so well in the draft. And it's a pretty young core. Is there any scenario, and it's not like they have a choice, but with Joe Flacco essentially starting the season, at least it looks that way right now, is there any chance that this kind of works out where you've got this sort of redemption project for a veteran quarterback who can help these young kids learn? And, I've read different articles about some of the younger kids saying like, hey, there's Joe Flacco at practice, kind of idolizing him for everything that he's accomplished. I mean, is this a scenario that could potentially work to start the season?
I think so. I mean, to be honest with you, I haven't felt this comfortable with a backup quarterback in a really, really long time. I know Joe Flacco isn't the same guy that he once was with Baltimore, but at the end of the day, he's seen a ton of different defenses. He is a Super Bowl champion. He knows how to get it done in critical situations. And when we take a look at the start of the season, the Jets schedule, it's against Baltimore, it's against Pittsburgh and Cleveland and Cincinnati. So the Jets have definitely they got some tough teams early on. Personally, I wouldn't want to rush Zach Wilson back. He injured his same knee last year. So if it was me, if I was Robert Saleh, again, I think I would go with Joe Flacco week 1, maybe even week 2, because he is the veteran option. You look at Baltimore, you look at Cleveland, 2 stacked defenses, 2 teams that are desperately going to try to, wreak havoc, get in the backfield. So for me, I feel really good about Flacco, especially early on.
And the bar has been set pretty low in the month of September anyway. I mean, I hate to remind you as a Jets fan, and I know Jets Nation will probably hate me for saying, but I mean, they typically don't win. They haven't won a ton of games in September over the last couple of seasons. So I tend to agree with you. If it's about making sure that Zach Wilson is truly ready to come back, you might as well leave a veteran like Joe Flacco out there for as long as you can. On the defensive side of the ball, does it seem like the group has had enough time to gel together to get comfortable with one another heading into the regular season so far?
To be honest, it has been a little tough because there's just been so many, injuries, and there's a lot of positional battles, like what's happening exactly at corner. Robert Saleh has still hasn't named a starter, whether it's Sauce Gardner or Bryce Hall. On the outside, you got positions like safety. We don't really know who's going to be starting there. Weak side linebacker. The team just brought in Quan Alexander. So the assumption is he's going to play. But defensively, I think it really starts with the front four down linemen. I mean, if we look at the team if we look at the defense last season, it was the worst in football. So there's, in a sense, there's only really one way to go, which is up. But then, you look at the roster, they have the talent, but if they can't get after the quarterback, I think it's going to be a really, really big problem because this team couldn't do it last year, and then opposing quarterbacks just picked them apart because of it.
How troublesome is it for you, for Jets fans, that there are some key positions where heading into the regular season, which will be here in essentially 2 weeks, the starters aren't firmly set yet?
Honestly, like, it is what it is. If this was a Super Bowl contender, if this was, a team that was like right on the cusp of challenging, the Buffalo Bills, the Miami Dolphins for the division crown, I would be a little bit more concerned. But because the Jets are still really young, because the coaching staff is really young, I think this is a good period to really just work out all the kinks. So I'm honestly not that concerned.
When you take a look at the schedule, what do you forecast for how this season is going to ebb and flow? I mean, I know Zach Wilson's health is obviously a huge part of that, and making sure that they don't sustain further injury to some of their key positions is a huge part of that. But in terms of strength of schedule and what they're up against right out of the gate, how do you see this season going? I mean, do you expect an improved effort from the Jets, particularly, as you mentioned on the defensive end, it couldn't get much worse last year?
Yeah, I mean, as a fan, I hope everything starts off, in a good fashion, because we look at how the Jets finished last year against teams like the Eagles and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Like, the Jets look solid. Like, they hung in with both of those teams. Both were playoff teams. So I think, they have the foundation, they have the young talent. I just think it's a matter of time, really, before this Jets team starts to pick it up and really hang in week after week after week. I think consistency is the name of the game. But to be honest with you, looking at everything realistically, I do think the Jets will struggle early on. But luckily for them, the schedule kind of lightens up later on.
When they drafted Sauce Gardner, did everybody expect right away, Jets Nation, that he was going to be the starter this upcoming season?
Yeah, I would definitely say so, because, this is a Jets team, and you kind of touched on it before, they don't have everything figured out. There's a bunch of positional battles taking place. The team does have a lot of holes. So for them to go select a cornerback in the top 5, I don't think any NFL team should do that. And then outside of quarterback. But I mean, if we're talking offensive line, wide receiver, edge rusher, whatever the case is, I don't think you select a player in the top 5 if you are a rebuilding team that's going to need time on the bench. In other words, there's not much talent there to begin with. So I think right out of the gate, Sauce Gardner has got to be a starter.
I'm sure a lot of Jets fans, Ian, are familiar with Robert Saleh's approach already. And I'm thinking about this young kind of core that they have, that this team is hopefully looking to build with and improve with. And I found it kind of funny that he said after the one Giants-Jets preseason practice, he said, treat those guys like your friends, meaning the Giants, right? For them to kind of come together and have this joint practice. Very tame by most NFL standards, at least compared to some of the joint practices that we've seen in the offseason from other teams. No real drama to speak of between the Jets and the Giants leading into this final preseason game. Does that track for you with what kind of coach Robert Saleh is, what kind of guy he is, and is he the right guy to mold a young group, to bring in top draft picks, and to hopefully, if he has the leash and the leeway to do something like that, is he the right guy to sort of build for the Jets' success moving forward, even if it really is a couple seasons away?
Yeah, I think, on the surface, you look at what he did in San Francisco, obviously a player's coach. He wants the best for his players. It seems like a lot of the free agency moves that the Jets made, adding guys like Laken Tomlinson, CJ Uzomah, Tyler Conklin, a lot of veteran players, Jordan Whitehead, won a Super Bowl in Tampa Bay. A lot of these veteran players are coming to New York. And, in all of their opening statement or their opening pressers, It's they're talking about Saleh. We wanted to go play for Coach Saleh. So there's that obvious connection there. But we do have to look, again, at everything realistically and say, hey, well, this team wasn't really that good last season. It was a bottom 5 team. What went wrong? He is a defensive guy, and the defense was the worst in football. I think this season's going to be big for Saleh and his future. For me, I'm expecting 7 wins. I think it's realistic to say that. I don't think it's, I'm insane for expecting 7 wins, assuming everybody's healthy moving forward, including Zach Wilson. So I think, I want to say that Saleh's the guy. I believe in him, but this year is going to be huge. I feel like midway through 75%, through this season, we'll have a pretty clear answer of what the future holds for Robert moving forward.
And what are the top 3 things, would you say, Ian, that you're going to be looking for this final preseason game aside, once the team gets into the regular season? I mean, I know it's hard to assess the offense when such a critical piece is going to be sidelined for at least a couple of games. But, as you think about the regular season 2022 and the team as it's currently constituted, what are the top 3 questions that you have in your mind that you think Jets fans have in their mind about this squad?
Yeah, I think first and foremost is the pass rush, because the scheme. I mean, there's a lot of zone coverage. Everybody's playing, backpedaling essentially. This isn't a defense that's going to be sending crazy blitzes like Wink Martindale, the Giants defensive coordinator. It's not going to be like that. The old days of Todd Bowles, Greg Williams, Rex Ryan. It's more so, can the front 4 win? If they can't, then the quarterback is going to have all day to throw. So getting in the backfield with guys coming back, from injury, the Vinny Currys of the world, the Carl Lawsons of the world, newcomers like Jacob Martin, who the team acquired from Houston. I think the defensive line is paramount for this season. If we look at overall defensive success, number 2, quarterback development. I feel like that's kind of an obvious answer here, but Zach Wilson has got to grow as a quarterback, because if he puts up similar numbers, double-digit picks, single-digit touchdowns, not really putting the ball in play, just constantly getting sacked, holding on to the football. If that's the case offensively, it's just things are not going to go well. And then number 3, and this goes for the coaching staff as well, it's just limiting confusion, time management, when to use a challenge, 2-minute drill, looking alive. What's happening on, why is the team running it on a 3rd and 9, in a critical part of the game? So situations like that, limiting the overall confusion and just kind of getting everything streamlined, I think is really important.
Is there any scenario that you can envision where Joe Flacco would keep the starting job longer than Zach Wilson's injury would dictate?
That's a great question. I think if it was up to me and Joe Flacco's playing well, and even if the Jets are losing, but the offense is having success, of course, looking at who the team is playing, Baltimore, Cleveland, I think that would say something. And if I was the coach, I think I would keep Joe in there, because what does it say to the rest of the guys in the locker room if you pull a quarterback who's, performing well, he's getting in the end zone, he's distributing the football, for a guy that we just don't, coming off of an injury. I mean, of course, we would assume that he is 1,000% healthy. But if you put Zach in and he starts to struggle again, then you're going to have all the fans saying, oh, quarterback controversy. Now we got to go put Flacco back into the lineup. What's the future with Zach Wilson? So I think I would, again, if it was up to me here, I would let Flacco ride until he starts to stutter a little bit, and then go with Wilson. But I mean, if Wilson is healthy week 1 or week 2 and Flacco just looks okay, or the Jets get demolished, then I'd obviously have no problem putting Zach back into the starting lineup.
I know you predicted 7 wins. Can you give us sort of a sense of how Jets Nation is feeling, or any of the feedback that you've gotten on JetsCentral about this coming season? I mean, there's sort of like this cloud of doom, I feel like, hanging over, where Jets fans are desperate to not have it be same old Jets, injuries, underproducing quarterback, a bunch of tough losses. Is there a reason to be optimistic? How are Jets fans feeling heading into this season?
I would say, I can't speak for everybody, but I would say that the Jets fan base as a whole is feeling pretty good. Because at the end of the day, Joe Douglas went out and spent millions upon millions of dollars adding veterans from great football teams, Minnesota, Tampa Bay, San Francisco, really addressing positions of need, identifying the weak spots at the end of last season, and saying, we really need that guard. We really need that star safety in the back end. the team goes out and adds 3 first-round picks. Like, how many teams can say that? Like, not many, which would now mean or now equal 5 first-round picks in the last 2 years. You go get Breece Hall at round 2. I think the talent's there for sure. I mean, it's hard for me to look at the Jets roster and say that's a bottom 2, bottom 3 team in football. But at the same time, they're still young. There's still things that need to be worked out. When you start comparing teams like the Jets to, or, when you start comparing the Jets to teams like Baltimore, just the top dogs in football, the Titans, the Bills, specifically in the AFC, I don't think the Jets fan base is really expecting 13 wins or 12 wins. I think middle of the road, anywhere from 7 to 10, I think is really the sweet spot here.
They say the beauty of low expectations, right? Don't set the bar too high. Maybe set it right at 10 games or a little bit under, and then everybody can go home happy, hopefully, at the end of the season. Ian from JetsCentral, thanks so much for being with us and for the insight. Really appreciate it. Looking forward to the Jets preseason game with the Giants, and then we'll see what happens from there in the regular season.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.